Grace briskly walked through the bustling streets of Charlotte, her mind preoccupied with the day's tasks at the marketing firm where she worked. As the morning sun peeked through the towering office buildings, she quickened her pace, eager to arrive at her desk and dive into the latest project. Upon entering the office, Grace was immediately greeted by the friendly smile of her coworker Samuel. He casually approached her, his warm gaze captivating her attention. "Good morning, Grace," he said, his voice laced with a subtle charm. "I was hoping we could go over the new campaign strategy later today. I'd value your input." Grace felt a flutter in her chest as she met Samuel's eyes. There was something about his confident demeanor and genuine interest that stirred a sense of intrigue within her. "Of course," she replied, trying to maintain her professional composure. "I'd be happy to discuss it with you." Throughout the day, Grace found her mind drifting back to her interaction with Samuel. She couldn't help but notice the way he moved with effortless grace, the way his brow furrowed in concentration as he reviewed the marketing data, the way his laughter seemed to brighten the entire office. Guilt tugged at her conscience as she was painfully aware that she was in a committed relationship with James, a brilliant financial analyst whom she loved dearly. As the afternoon wore on, Grace found herself seeking out opportunities to collaborate with Samuel, their conversations becoming increasingly personal and tinged with an undercurrent of unspoken attraction. She felt herself being drawn to his charisma, his intellect, and the way he seemed to understand her in a way that no one else did. That evening, as Grace sat across the dinner table from James, she found it increasingly difficult to focus on his words. Her mind was consumed by the memory of Samuel's piercing gaze and the tantalizing possibility of what could be. Guilt slowly crept into her heart as she realized that she was beginning to compromise the very foundation of her relationship. Lying awake in bed, Grace wrestled with the conflicting emotions that threatened to unravel the carefully constructed life she had built. She knew that giving in to the temptation of Samuel's allure would come at a heavy price, but the pull was becoming increasingly difficult to resist. As the first rays of dawn peeked through the curtains, Grace made a silent vow to herself. She would have to confront this moral dilemma head-on, for the sake of her relationship, her career, and her own sense of self. The following week saw Grace's resolve slowly crumbling as her interactions with Samuel became more frequent and charged with an undeniable tension. She found herself drawn to his magnetic presence, captivated by the way he listened intently to her ideas and valued her contributions. One afternoon, as they pored over the latest marketing campaign, their eyes met, and Grace felt a spark of electricity pass between them. Samuel leaned in slightly, his voice lowering to a near whisper. "Samuel, Grace, I've been meaning to tell you. I've been incredibly impressed by your work. You have a brilliant mind, and I truly enjoy our discussions." Grace felt her heart racing, and she struggled to maintain her composure. "Thank you, Samuel," she replied, her voice barely above a murmur. "I have found our collaboration to be equally rewarding." The air between them grew thick with unspoken desire, and Grace knew that she was teetering on the edge of a precipice. She thought of James, the man she loved, and the life they had built together. But the allure of Samuel's attention was proving to be an overpowering temptation. Days later, as Grace and James sat in comfortable silence on the couch, she found herself unable to focus on the TV program they were watching. Her mind kept drifting back to Samuel and the forbidden fantasies that had begun to take root. "Grace, James, there's something I need to tell you." James turned to her, his brow furrowing with concern. "What is it, darling?" Grace took a deep breath, her fingers trembling slightly. "I've been having feelings for someone else at work. I don't know how it happened, but I can't stop thinking about him." James' eyes widened, and his expression shifted from concern to hurt. "What are you saying, Grace, are you telling me that you've been unfaithful? Grace felt tears welling in her eyes as she nodded, unable to meet his gaze. I'm so sorry, James. I never meant for this to happen, but I'm so confused, and I don't know what to do. James let out a long, heavy sigh, his hand running through his hair in a gesture of frustration. I don't understand, Grace. I thought we were happy. I thought we had something special. Grace reached out to him, her voice trembling. We do, James. You mean everything to me. But there's this pull, this temptation that I can't seem to resist. I've been fighting it, but I'm failing. The room fell silent, save for the faint sound of the TV. Grace waited with bated breath, her heart sinking as she watched the hurt and betrayal etched across James' face. She knew that this moment would change the course of their relationship forever. In the days that followed the devastating revelation to James, Grace found herself in a state of constant turmoil. The weight of her guilt hung heavy on her shoulders, and she struggled to maintain a facade of normalcy in her relationship. Grace tried to bury her feelings for Samuel, to push them down and focus all of her attention on mending the rift she had created with James. But the more she tried to suppress her desires, the more they seemed to consume her thoughts, like a relentless tide threatening to pull her under. At work, Grace found it increasingly difficult to be around Samuel. She would avoid his gaze, her body tensing whenever he approached her. The once thrilling exchanges they had shared now filled her with a deep sense of shame and unease. One afternoon, as Grace was hurriedly gathering her belongings to leave the office, Samuel caught her by the arm. Samuel, Grace, is everything all right? You've been distant lately, and I'm starting to worry about you. Grace felt her heart race, her palms growing clammy. I'm fine, Samuel, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I've just been preoccupied with some personal matters. Samuel's brow furrowed with concern, and he gently squeezed her arm. If there's anything I can do to help, please don't hesitate to let me know. I'm here for you, Grace. Grace's throat tightened, and she felt the familiar sting of tears in her eyes. Thank you, Samuel, but this is something I need to handle on my own. She pulled her arm away and hurried out of the office, her mind racing with a whirlwind of emotions. The guilt of her betrayal was a constant companion, a heavy burden that weighed on her every waking moment. At home, Grace found it increasingly difficult to maintain a convincing facade for James. She would often catch herself lost in thought, her gaze distant, and her mind far away. James, ever the perceptive partner, began to notice the subtle changes in her demeanor, and his concern only seemed to grow with each passing day. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, James reached out and gently squeezed Grace's hand. James, darling, I can't help but feel like there's something weighing on your mind. You've seemed so distant lately. Is everything all right? Grace felt her heart racing, her palms growing clammy. She knew that she couldn't keep up the charade much longer, but the thought of losing James, the man she loved more than anything, was a fate she couldn't bear to confront. Grace, I'm fine, James, really. I've just been a little stressed at work, that's all. But I promise, everything is okay. James searched her face, his eyes filled with a mixture of love and concern. I want you to know that you can talk to me about anything, Grace. I'm here for you, no matter what. Grace felt the walls she had built up begin to crumble, and she knew that she couldn't keep the truth hidden forever. The weight of her deception was slowly suffocating her, and she knew that the time had come to face the consequences of her actions. The tension in the air was palpable as James confronted Grace about her suspicious behavior. He had sensed that something was amiss for weeks, and his concern had only grown stronger with each passing day. One evening, As they sat together in the dimly lit living room, James reached out and gently took Grace's hand in his own. "James, Grace, I need to talk to you about something. I can't help but feel like you've been distant lately. Is there something going on that you're not telling me?" Grace felt her heart racing, her palms growing clammy. She knew that the time had come to face the truth, but the thought of losing James was a fate she couldn't bear to confront. "Grace, James, I don't know how to say this, but..." James squeezed her hand, his eyes filled with a mixture of concern and apprehension. "Whatever it is, Grace, you can tell me. I'm here for you, no matter what." Grace took a deep breath, her voice trembling. I've been having feelings for someone else at work. I never meant for it to happen, but I can't stop thinking about him." James recoiled as if he had been struck, his expression shifting from concern to hurt and betrayal. "What are you saying, Grace? Are you telling me that you've been unfaithful?" Grace felt the tears welling in her eyes, her body shaking with emotion. "I'm so sorry, James. I never wanted to hurt you, but I've been so confused, and I don't know what to do." James stood up, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "I can't believe this. After everything we've been through, everything we've built together, you're telling me that you've betrayed me." Grace reached out to him, her voice pleading. "James, please, let me explain. Never meant for this to happen, but I'm so lost, and I don't know how to make it right." James stepped back, his eyes filled with a mixture of anguish and disbelief. "I don't think there's anything you can say to make this right, Grace. You've broken my trust, and I don't know if I can ever forgive you for that." The room fell silent, save for the sound of Grace's muffled sobs. The weight of their shared history, the dreams they had built together, all seemed to crumble in the wake of this devastating revelation. As the sun set outside, casting long shadows across the room, Grace knew that the foundation of their relationship had been irrevocably shaken. The fallout from her betrayal would have far-reaching consequences, both personal and professional, and she braced herself for the storm that was about to unfold. In the aftermath of the confrontation with James, Grace's world began to unravel. The unforgiving weight of her actions had unleashed a cascade of consequences that threatened to consume her from all sides. At work, the once vibrant office atmosphere had become stifling, filled with the palpable tension of unspoken judgment. Grace found it increasingly difficult to concentrate on her tasks, her mind consumed by the echoes of James' heartbroken voice and the realization that her professional reputation was now in jeopardy. One morning, as Grace nervously made her way to her desk, she caught the sidelong glances and hushed whispers of her colleagues. The once friendly smiles and casual conversations had been replaced by a chilling silence, a silent indictment of her moral failing. "Grace, excuse me, Sarah, do you have a moment?" Sarah, a longtime friend and colleague, shifted uncomfortably in her chair, her expression guarded. "Of course, Grace. What can I do for you?" Grace felt a lump forming in her throat, her voice wavering with uncertainty. "I couldn't help but notice the change in the office atmosphere. Has something happened that I should be aware of?" Sarah hesitated, her eyes darting away before finally meeting Grace's gaze. "I'm not sure I'm the best person to discuss this with, Grace. You should probably speak with the HR manager." Grace's heart sank as the implications of Sarah's response began to sink in. "Has someone filed a complaint against me? Is my job at risk?" Sarah's expression softened slightly, a glimmer of empathy flickering in her eyes. "I'm afraid I can't discuss the details, Grace. I think it's best if you speak with the HR manager as soon as possible." Grace nodded, her mind racing with 1,000 unanswered questions. She knew that the fallout from her indiscretion was only just beginning, and the thought of losing the career she had worked so hard to build filled her with a deep sense of dread. As the day wore on, Grace found herself summoned to the HR manager's office, her heart pounding with each step she took towards the imposing wooden door. The meeting was brief, but the impact was devastating. Her actions had not only betrayed the trust of her partner, but had also jeopardized her standing within the company. Leaving the office, Grace felt a mix of shame, anger, and overwhelming despair. The walls were closing in, and she knew that the consequences of her choices were only just beginning to unfold. The once vibrant life she had built was now teetering on the edge of collapse, and she had no choice but to confront the full weight of her actions. As the dust began to settle around the fallout from her indiscretion, Grace found herself in a state of profound introspection. The once thrilling temptation that had lured her into betrayal now lay bare, revealing the deep cracks in her own moral foundation. Retreating from the public eye, Grace sought solace in the comfort of her closest confidant, her dear friend Emily. The two had known each other since childhood, and Emily had always been a source of unwavering support and sage advice. "Grace, I don't know what to do, Emily. I've lost everything. My relationship with James, my standing at work. Feel like I'm completely adrift, and I don't know how to find my way back." Emily reached out and gently squeezed Grace's hand, her expression filled with empathy. "I can only imagine how difficult this must be for you, Grace, but you have to know that you're not alone in this." "Grace, I feel so ashamed, Emily. How could I have let this happen? I betrayed the man I love, and I've jeopardized the career I've worked so hard to build. What am I supposed to do now?" "Emily, the path forward may not be an easy one, but you have to start by being honest with yourself. What was it that drew you to this other man? And why did you feel the need to betray James?" "Grace, I don't know, Emily. There was something about Samuel, his intelligence, his charisma, the way he made me feel seen and valued. But I never meant to hurt James. I love him more than anything, and the thought of losing him is tearing me apart." Emily nodded thoughtfully, her brow furrowed with concern. "It sounds like you're grappling with some deep-seated issues, Grace. Issues that go beyond just your relationship with James and this other man." "Grace, what do you mean? What kind of issues?" "Emily, well, it seems like you may have been seeking something in your relationship with Samuel that was missing in your relationship with James. Something that made you feel more fulfilled, or more understood, or more valued." "Grace, but I do feel fulfilled with James. We have a beautiful, loving relationship. Or at least we did until I ruined everything." "Emily, that may be true, but sometimes our deepest needs and desires can be hidden, even from ourselves. The key is to really examine what's driving you, to understand the root of your actions, and to figure out how to cultivate that fulfillment within yourself, rather than seeking it externally." Grace nodded slowly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You're right, Emily. I need to do some serious soul-searching if I'm ever going to make things right. I have to find a way to forgive myself, and to figure out how to rebuild the trust I've shattered with James." Emily reached out and pulled Grace into a warm embrace. "I'm here for you, Grace, every step of the way. And I know that if anyone can find their way through this, it's you." As Grace held on to her friend, she felt a glimmer of hope begin to stir within her. The path to redemption would not be an easy one, but she knew that she owed it to herself, to James, and to the life they had built together to at least try. The road to reconciliation between Grace and James was long and arduous, paved with the shards of broken trust and the weight of unspoken emotions. Yet, with unwavering determination and a shared desire to mend their relationship, they embarked on a journey of self-reflection and honest dialogue. One evening, as they sat together on the edge of their bed, the silence between them was palpable, tangible reminder of the chasm that had opened in their once solid bond. Grace, James, I know that words can't undo the hurt I've caused you, but I hope you'll allow me to try and make things right. James remained silent, his gaze fixed on the floor, his jaw clenched with the effort of holding back the torrent of emotions that threatened to consume him. Grace, I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realize that my actions weren't just a betrayal of your trust. They were a betrayal of myself, of the person I aspire to be. I let my own insecurities and desires cloud my judgment, and I hurt you in the process. James looked up, his eyes meeting Grace's, and she was struck by the raw vulnerability that shone through. How am I supposed to trust you again, Grace? How can I be sure that this won't happen again? Grace, I don't have all the answers, James, but I do know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. I'm committed to being honest, to communicating openly, and to working through this with you, no matter how difficult it may be. James sighed heavily, his hand running through his hair in a gesture of frustration. I want to believe you, Grace, I really do. But the thought of you being with someone else, of you betraying us, it's just so devastating. Grace reached out and gently placed her hand on his arm, her touch tentative, yet filled with a quiet desperation. I know, James, and I'm so sorry. I can't take back what I've done, but I can promise you that I will spend every day for the rest of my life trying to make it up to you, to show you that you are the only one I want to be with. The silence that followed was thick with tension, but beneath the surface, a glimmer of hope began to emerge. James closed his eyes, his shoulders sagging as he exhaled a long, slow breath. James, I love you, Grace. I love you more than anything in this world. But I need time to heal, time to rebuild the trust that you shattered. Can you give me that? Grace felt the weight of his words settle into her heart. Bittersweet mixture of relief and uncertainty. Of course, James. I'll give you all the time you need, and I'll be here, waiting, every step of the way. With that, Grace moved closer to James, wrapping her arms around him in a tight embrace. As they held each other, the first tentative steps towards reconciliation and forgiveness began to take shape, a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness that had threatened to consume them. Time passed, and with each day, the arduous process of rebuilding the trust between Grace and James slowly began to take shape. It was a journey marked by moments of vulnerability, open communication, and a deep, unwavering commitment to one another. As they navigated the complexities of their reconciliation, Grace found herself increasingly drawn to the wisdom and insight of her friend Emily. The two would meet regularly, their conversations a safe haven where Grace could explore the deeper questions that plagued her mind. Grace, I feel like I'm making progress with James, but there are still moments where I'm overcome with doubt and fear. What if I'm not strong enough to overcome this, Emily? What if I can't rebuild what I've destroyed? Emily offered a gentle, reassuring smile. Grace, you are stronger than you know. The fact that you're willing to do the hard work, to confront your own flaws and insecurities, is a testament to your character. It won't be easy, but I have faith that you and James will come out of this stronger than ever. Grace nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I want that more than anything, Emily. I want to be the person James deserves, the person I know I can be. But what if I'm too damaged, too flawed, to ever truly heal the wounds I've caused? Emily reached across the table and squeezed Grace's hand. The journey of healing and redemption is never a straight line, Grace. There will be setbacks and moments of doubt, but the key is to keep moving forward, to stay committed to the process, and to never lose sight of the love you and James share. Grace took a deep, steadying breath, her resolve strengthening with each passing moment. "You're right, Emily. I can't give up, not when the stakes are so high. I have to try for James, for myself, and for the life we've built together." In the weeks that followed, Grace and James continued to navigate the delicate terrain of their reconciliation. There were moments of vulnerability, of raw emotion, and even flashes of doubt, but through it all, they clung to the foundation of their love, determined to rebuild what had been shattered. As they stood together on the balcony of their home, gazing out at the twinkling city skyline, Grace felt a sense of cautious optimism begin to take root within her. She reached out and entwined her fingers with James, a silent gesture that spoke volumes. "Grace, thank you, James, for giving me another chance. I know I don't deserve it, but I promise to spend every day proving that I'm worthy of your trust and your love." James pulled her close, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "We've been through so much, Grace, but I believe that if we can get through this, we can get through anything. I'm in this with you for as long as you'll have me." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow across the city, Grace felt a renewed sense of purpose. The path ahead was still uncertain, but she knew that with James by her side, and with the unwavering support of those she loved, she had the strength to face whatever challenges lay in store. Dear viewers, having traveled with Grace and James through the ups and downs of their relationship, what lessons or conclusions have you drawn about the nature of trust, forgiveness, and the complexities of the human heart? How do their experiences resonate with your own life challenges? And what wisdom would you offer to others in a similar situation? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your participation and insight can help inspire and support others navigating the confusing landscapes of relationships and personal growth.